Hi, and welcome to the top 5 tips to growing your sales with me, Michael Hardy, and David O'Brien from the Consulting Room. We've got 5 tips that's going to help your business grow its sales. The first one is?
So the first thing is to remember it's not what you're selling that is important. It's what your customer is buying. And that may sound like it's going to be exactly the same thing, but don't focus on your product, your service. Focus on the experience that the customer is getting. What problem do you solve for the customer, for the potential client? So famously, the CEO of Black & Decker said, people don't go into a DIY shop because they want to buy a drill. They go in because they want to make a hole in the wall. That's the customer experience. Don't make the best drill ever. Help your customer to make a really great hole in the wall. So what is the hole in the wall for your business? What's the customer experience? Blockbuster famously got this wrong because they focused on the product. They focused on the videos, the DVDs, the popcorn that went with it. But actually, that wasn't what people were buying. People weren't buying hiring a DVD. They were buying the ability to watch a film, to watch some content. And when Netflix came along and gave them a different way of watching content, then Blockbuster disappeared and Netflix was very successful. So think about the customer experience. What's your customer buying, not just what you're selling?
Number 2 in the top 5 tips is know where your profit sits. It's really important to understand the profitability of your product or service. Have you calculated your margin, taking into effect not just the raw materials, but the time it takes? And if you're a service provider, that's not just the time you're sat with a customer, that's the time to prepare, the fuel to drive to get there, the time to write up notes. Taking time to work out your gross margin for each product or service is truly eye-opening. And we've even had people comment about how it's made spreadsheets interesting or it's changed their view of their business by looking at their gross profit. So know where your profit sits. We tend to find 80% of our results are driven by 20% of our products or our services. We all know that being a busy fool is not what we want to be. So focus on where your profit comes from, what service and product you want to focus on, the ones that make you the most money.
Understand your customer circumstances is number 3. Now, hopefully you've got an idea of your customer avatar, your ideal client, and you've done some work on who that person, who those people are that you want to engage with. But that's not enough, because sometimes we get the right message to the ideal client and they don't buy it. And why is that? Because the circumstances aren't exactly right. So you can tell a client about your product or your service 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. And on the 5th time, they say, yeah, that's exactly what I want. What's changed? The customer hasn't changed. Their circumstances, something inside their head or something in their particular day-to-day activity has changed on that day that makes them want to buy your service. So what is it that your customer is thinking or doing at the precise moment that they read your email or your post or whatever marketing message you get to them that makes them say, yeah, that's what I want? What's the circumstance that makes your customer buy rather than just the ideal client? And that's one of the reasons that it's so important to be consistent, not just to get a message out there once, but to get the messages again and again, and to follow up 7 times. I know it sounds a lot now, it sounds like you're nagging and you're badgering, but your customers are busy too. The reason they haven't got back to you may not be because they're not interested. It may just be because it slipped their mind again, because they are so busy doing what they do. I must get in touch with Michael and just, yeah. And the 4th time that you remind them, they go, yeah, no, I really must do it. And that's the time that either their circumstances are right or they've got that bit of time to do it. So understand your customer's circumstances that drive behavior and not just your customer avatar.
So number 4 is that process is more important than flair. This is the boring bit, but this is the most important bit. There is a myth that salespeople have the gift of the gab, that they can talk the hind legs off a donkey, that they can sell sand to the Middle East. Actually, it's about process. It's about having a structure that says, this is the steps I'm going to take to deliver my sales. What's your pipeline? How do you generate leads? Where do you get your leads from? How do you stay in communication with them? Do you follow them up? I've got a furniture manufacturer who has paint sample requests. People want to know what the real color is because looking at it on the website doesn't give you the feel or the touch in the real color. So he sends out samples. Now, what he now does is he follows up every sample with an email and a phone call within 7 to 10 days. And his conversion rate has increased because he's kept talking to those customers. So having a process to follow from generating the leads, that's great, to actually having a sale needs to take steps. And here's a customer journey where we raise the issue of what's the problem, how do they get to know you, what are the touch points of getting to know you, and where do they make the decision? And are you in the game and always communicating? So it's not about flair, it's not about gift of the gab, it's about a process. And having a good, solid process will deliver more sales to your business.
And the fifth one is create an emotional connection. Customers buy on emotion and then justify it later with logic. If you're focusing on technical details, on product specifications, and that's the temptation, that doesn't drive behavior. People don't make decisions on technical information. They make decisions on emotion. Basically in life, we're animals. There are only two things that motivate us. The fear of pain, moving away from a problem, or the desire for pleasure, moving to a great experience or a great product or service. And it's the emotion that drives the behavior. So how do you create that emotional connection? And then they can back it up with the technical information afterwards. Don't lead on your product or services technical information. So are you moving customers away from a problem or towards a solution? Different kinds of messages, away motivated or towards motivated, and what's the emotional connection that you're going to create that will make your customer change their behavior by buying your product or service.
So let's recap on the 5 key tips for increasing your sales. It's not what you're selling, it's what your customers are buying. Knowing where your profit sits. Understands your customer's circumstance, not just who they are, what's the circumstance that's changed that they're in that makes them buy. Having a process, really important to have a step process that takes people through from being a potential to being a client. And finally, emotion. People buy for pleasure or to get away from pain, and creating those emotions are what makes the difference.
So that's the 5 top tips from us in the consulting room for growing your sales. And if you want to find out more, have a chat, then Michael and I are available for a free one-to-one 30-minute chat, talk a bit more about sales, talk a bit more about your business. There are our contact details there. Feel free to get in touch. But most of all, think about your sales. Think about getting that money into your business to help you grow and to help you have a successful business. Thanks for joining us.